to the Unstoppable Introvert Project, where we empower introverts to excel and thrive in every aspect of your life. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and today we have the pleasure of welcoming a truly inspiring individual to the show. Joining us today is Happie Lifts, a passionate coach and advocate for strength and empowerment. Happie's journey into the world of fitness began as an apprentice in the industry, where she immersed herself for a couple of years before embarking on a really remarkable and exciting career. Happie's got a background in strong woman competitions. She's moved into things like CrossFit and high rocks. And something that truly sets Happie apart is her unwavering commitment to her clients, the industry, her culture, and all of the things that Happie's going to talk about with us today. So I'm so excited to welcome Happie to the show. How are you, Happie?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited. I'm so excited to catch up with you, because when did we first get to know each other?
Years ago. It was
It was quite a
before
few years ago. It
lockdown.
was like 2019, if you can believe that, before lockdown and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that long ago. It was at the gym.
Yeah, so you were one of the personal trainers at First Step Lifestyle, which does seem years and years ago.
Yeah. I try to think of it as like, well, it was just before lockdown, but then it's like, well, how long ago was lockdown?
I
It only
know.
feels like a year ago.
The years just merge together, don't they?
Yeah.
To kick us off then, Happy, would you, just for those people who are new to you and what you do, can you just tell us just a little bit about you and what's kind of gotten you to this point?
Well, happy by name, happy by nature. But I guess the beginning of my journey wasn't so happy because I was poorly. But then I got
Okay.
into the gym. It started off just with like basic bodybuilding. Uh, Not that I really enjoyed it, but it helped. And from then, joined a functional fitness gym, got into that, and then found a coach there who shouted at me in a nice way, and he became my strongman coach. So he helped me, encouraged me, made me pull trucks, even though I thought I couldn't do it. But he believed in me, so I did it. And then after all that, I was like, I want to do what he did, but help other people or like build their confidence like he did. So then that's when I started my apprenticeship. And then I don't know, like through the years, somehow changed from strongman to like Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit. And then I was invited to FSI, which sadly it doesn't exist anymore. It's closed. But that was Olympic weightlifting. Was invited to like shadow the class and to do like a level 2 course as well at the gym. That was really good. Got to help like younger people as well, all different age groups. And then from there, you invited me to your gym. I think that brings us up to the journey now, apart from the whole moving to Leeds.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into all of that and I don't want to give the game away, but the people who you work with and help and all of those different things you've overcome to get to where you are now. But before we dive into all of that, the title of the show is Unstoppable or Unstoppable Introverts. And I'm curious, what does being unstoppable look like to you?
Well, I think of a quote that my auntie used to say to me when I was younger, which is feel the fear and do it anyway, because most things scare me. But I'm like, well, I should feel scared, but I should still do it anyway. So that makes you unstoppable.
I love that. I love that quote. And how do you get to that point? Because I think a lot of people listening, and I've mentioned this on kind of one of my podcasts previously, that for me as an introvert, fear would have been like the tagline, and thinking about just how to, just do it anyway. How did you get to that point where you could look at fear and just do it anyway?
Well, I'm very stubborn. part of that is like, well, I have to do it. I'm going to do it because I said I'm going to do it. Um, but I think some of the overcoming the fear, moving to Leeds did help. Like coming out of lockdown, and then not everyone knows when I first moved to Leeds. Within the first week, it hadn't even been a week, someone broke into the house and stole my car. So it was bad times. So going through all that afterwards, I was like, well, that was really scary. Talking to some people at the gym or putting myself out there, it's not that scary in comparison.
Wow, that's a horrible experience, Happy.
Yeah, it wasn't a nice welcome to Leeds.
No, I can imagine, but I think the point you're making is really crucial in that things we perceive as fear or things we're worrying about, actually, in contrast to some other things like the example you've just given, that's fear. But approaching new clients in the gym isn't, well, it's still a worry, but it isn't a really fearful situation.
Yeah, like, I'm not fearing for my safety when I'm just trying to talk to people in a safe environment.
Exactly, absolutely. So just thinking about your background then and what you're doing now. So you've kind of picked your life up and moved it down the country in a way. So for those who haven't come across Happy before, Happy was in Newcastle and then went down to Leeds. So yeah, that must in itself have been quite a big mindset shift almost to go, right, we're going to pick our lives up and move it hundreds of miles or so down the country. How did that come about, and how did you manage that in terms of mindset?
It was hard. It was part of our 5-year plan though, but I feel like lockdown sped it up because it was meant to be within the 5, and then it was like only the 3rd year, and lockdown happened, the gym shut, and I was like, well, I can't work at a gym. I can do some online bits. Now was a perfect time to move. And my partner wanted to be closer to his family because he was working in hospitals. So he was like, I've seen other families going through stuff. I just want to be near my family. And I was like, well, I can't say no to that, can I? I was like, okay, fair enough.
Quite a strong argument.
Yeah. And then also he'd been living in Newcastle for nearly 5 years, 5, 6 years. So I was like, okay, you've done your time. We can move to Leeds.
And then when you got to Leeds, did you essentially have to start your business again from scratch?
Yeah. But which bit of lockdown was it? It was when you were allowed to move house, but I don't think you were allowed to like meet in groups yet.
Right.
Like you were allowed to meet outside, and that was it. It was that weird time. So yeah, so I couldn't work in a gym anyway. I had some online like Zoom. Does anyone remember the Zoom PT era? It was just that. So yeah, I had to start all over again.
And tell me how did you approach that, Happy? Because I think again, a lot of the listeners might be in that situation. Maybe they have been procrastinating on starting a business because it's a bit unknown. Maybe they are worried about starting a fitness journey because again, it's just something brand new. So how did you approach starting from scratch, building a new client base, getting to know the area? Yeah, how did you what were the steps you took to get to where you are now?
Well, I think there was a lot of trial and error because I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I was like, well, I have to do it because I've moved hours away from my family in my first home. So now I have to make it work. And then also, I think the whole like the car theft in a weird way helped because for it was at least a month, I didn't have a car. And anyone from Leeds knows the transport here is bad, like public transport. There's no metro, there's no tram, the buses are unreliable. So I was just like stuck at home, and I'd go to where I could walk, and I was like, I hate this, I'm stuck. I need to get out of this. So I had to work to get out of it.
So it was like that extra drive to go, you're either going to be in this situation or you need to work to get out of this situation.
Yeah. And again, it's the stubbornness helped. I was like, I'm going to get out of this situation.
And thinking just back to that kind of introverted nature, how did you approach that kind of networking or like starting to build that client base? Are you someone who can pick up the phone and call people?
No, I hate talking on the phone. I actually still remember one of the first people I rang. I think I just went quiet and they were like, "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can hear you." And they asked like 3 times, "Are you sure you can hear me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just awkward."
I love it. I love that. Again, when you're building a business, there's quite a lot of those mindset shifts you need to have with that outreach side of things.
Yeah, like I had to learn what worked for me, and cold calls is not the one. As I am, I would rather be just on the sofa with my dog. She's on the sofa in a minute. Um, and not going out. That's my favorite thing. Just being by myself with a dog. So just pushing myself out of that, like you have to go to the gym, you have to talk to people, and if there's like a networking event, like I've been to some talks, some set networking events, and like I've met some cool people that do like education events. So it was just like pushing myself to go to them. And there's always like the days leading up where it's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have to go.
I love that point, Abby. Tell me more about that because I am exactly the same. And I know my wife, who you know, Laura, is the same. And when we're in the house, we're like, this is perfect. Let's never leave. But I think when you're ambitious or trying to grow your business or all that type of thing, some of the podcast listeners might be trying to do, how do you get into that state of just no, this is not going to get us to where we want it, as comfortable as it is lying on the sofa with the dog and how lovely it is. I need to go to these networking events, or I need to go to the gym, or I need to do X, Y, and Z. How do you get to that point? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Well, for the first year when I joined the JD gyms here, we had like a business advisor, so
Ah,
like a bit like a business coach, and he'd sit down and be like, "How is it going?" Like, but the ultimate question was, "How many people have you been speaking to in the gym?" And I would be like, as in today or like this week?" And he was like, Week, how many have you spoken to this week?" And I'd be like, 3. And he'd be like, "Okay, you need to be talking to more than 3 people daily, never mind a week." And he was like, "That's how people are gonna get to know who you are and how you're gonna get clients." And I was like, "Oh, I don't like that." And he was like, "Well, you're gonna have to do it." And then we'd check in like twice a month, and he'd be like, "How is it going? How many people have you spoken to?" And the number just like slowly increased. And I was like, "It's uncomfortable, but actually, I'm starting to get used to it now."
would that be your advice to those people who are in a similar situation? It is just about getting into these new habits of just because it's new and scary doesn't mean it's necessarily bad and terrible for you.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it was. It was like forming a new habit because it was doing it slowly, step by step, and then getting used to doing it every day, then every week. And then it just became like second nature talking to people. Now I can't shut up.
I like it. So I know we had a brief chat before we kind of started recording about your introversion or bits of introversion. What role have your introverted traits played in kind of shaping you as a person, or bits of being an introvert either helped or hindered what you've been trying to do?
Okay, well, it definitely hindered me, especially in Newcastle. When I look back, I'm like, why was I not talking to anyone? Why was I just like going around the gym and avoiding people? I was like, that's like the opposite of what I should have been doing. So that definitely hindered me. But then I don't know whether it's part of being an introvert, but I got told when I joined this gym, like, don't be too nice. Like, if you let your clients think that like you're really nice and they'll feel like they can get away with things. And I was a bit like, what do you mean? And also do I have to change who I am as a person? I was like, I think I'm just gonna be myself, and then that's played to my advantage rather than like trying to be like this mean drill sergeant type of person.
Definitely. I think that is terrible advice. So I'm glad that you've stuck with your guns there. I think for me as an introvert, that side is always quite a positive thing. And what would you say, thinking about those introverted traits again, what are some of like the more positive things that it being slightly introverted brings to what you do and how you do it?
Well, I think because I'm not being really loud and like going into the gym and like people who talk to me, they don't feel like I'm shouting and like bringing attention. People that are similar to me end up working with me. So like other introverts or other slightly alternative people, or definitely other neurodivergent people. It's like we've got a little beacon and it like brings other people.
I love that because you find your tribe. It sounds like to me you're talking about finding your tribe, your people.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing I learned was stop trying to get everybody as a client. Like the people that are right for you will find you as well. Like yeah, you have to talk to people, but then they'll start referring you, and then like all these similar sorts of people, yeah, like your people will come to you.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. And when you do find your people, you can provide really bespoke support to them. A lot of the times because you understand what they're going through and all those different things, which I think is brilliant. And you mentioned kind of neurodiversity there. Tell us, what does that mean to you then?
Well, we call it being a bit spicy, neurospicy. You can kind of tell
I love that.
in the gym who's a little bit spicy. Not only do we attract each other, but it's like it's the person who's taking ages between their set and just staring at the barbell. Like I've counted it 3 times, and like just that little bit of awkwardness.
Yeah, no, that is brilliant. I love where did you come up with that term? Neuro spicy.
Yeah, I think it's just like I think it's a hashtag that
Ah,
people are
okay.
using because I didn't realize. Well, I knew I was neurodivergent, but was just calling myself dyslexic. And then I was like, well, I also might have these other things. But then other people who have like ADHD or autism, they were like, well, I'm neurodivergent. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's what I am actually. I should just start saying it rather than trying to hide it.
I love that as well, Happy. I think you when you start to do that, you turn these things that you probably have thought were holding you back into like these badges of honor almost, these superpowers, and they almost empower you. And I'm definitely seeing this from like your posts and the things you're doing. They inspire other people to do or try and do what you're doing or do incredible things as well. So I think that's amazing. And when you say neurodiversity or being neurodivergent, what does that look like to you, or how do you kind of overcome those obstacles that a lot of people may not fully understand?
Well, something that is ability to artificial light and like laptops and written words and like paper. So one thing I was scared for ages to get my glasses tinted because that helps. I can like read what I've written down and go into a room with that harsh like, office lighting and it won't make my eyes go all weird. But like, yeah, I finally embraced it and was like, just do it. No one's gonna say anything. And if they do, just tell them you need them. Like, no one's gonna laugh.
Yeah, owning what you is incredible and your uniqueness shines through. So no, that sounds an amazing journey, and I bet those people who you're working with are going to really value that as well. And is there a way, maybe for other personal trainers who are in that kind of space, is there a way you approach working with a neurodivergent person?
I'd say I do approach it differently because I know what it's like myself, like forgetting things easily or like getting confused, getting dates or times mixed up, needing things to be explained a little bit more or like check in. Is this the best way for me to teach you, or do you need me to teach you a different way? And like reminders. So, like, say the session's not until Friday, I'll probably message on the weekend, the week of, and the day before, because I know what I'm like, and I'm like, "Is it definitely still okay? You're gonna remember?" And it does work. And, like, just having to be a little bit more flexible around them as well.
You know, what you're describing there, Happy, is almost like what I'd call the gold standard of coaching. I think what you're doing is a brilliant offer, if you want to call it that. The really detailed questioning of what they're doing, the different choices you're giving and checking in, is this okay? You know, that your clients, no wonder that you're building a tribe down in Leeds. And then the constant reminding and, you know, getting in touch with them, they're going to really appreciate that. And, you know, you're going to be able to, you know, hopefully retain most of your clients because of that great service. So, you know, that sounds amazing. And I want to switch gears a little bit, because I know you've got such a inspiring background that we are, you know, pushed for time to cover it all. But I'd love to talk to you about your culture and some of the challenges that you've faced, where with regards to that, I think will be so inspiring for those people who are listening as well. So can you just give us a little bit of a background to what that kind of looks like to you?
Yeah. Well, I'm Indian, Punjabi. So my mum is from India in the Punjab, but she's not as like traditional as you'd think she would be. Like, she's completely fine with me dyeing my hair crazy colors, and I'll show her my newest tattoo, and she will compliment it rather than giving me a smack. So progress, but not everyone is as forward thinking as that. So if I rewind all the way back to, I'd got into the gym, and then this strongman coach had asked me to join their team, and I started entering competitions. Like, obviously my close family were very understanding of that, and they were like, this is good for Happy. Like, of course you should be able to do this. But then I had all these like more distant relatives that I don't even know them really. Apparently, like, ringing my family and saying like, "Why are you letting her do this?" I wasn't aware of it at the time. I was just like, "Yeah, training, getting ready for the competitions." But it came out later that people were saying to my dad, "You shouldn't be letting her, like, do this and competing, like, she's not a man." I'm like, "Well, I know I'm not a man." And also, I think there's like this idea that if you're in the gym, you must be exposing yourself. I think they get it mixed up with like the bikini competitions. And I'm like, maybe you need to learn a little bit more about the different types of fitness. So that was definitely something to overcome.
No, definitely. And I think that is some of the challenges that really make your story inspiring. For those people who may have a similar challenge in their life or a similar background to yourself, and perhaps they don't have that supportive network, or, you know, those people around them who says, actually, no, you're doing the right thing. How would you tell them to keep moving forward? Because we all know the value of going to the gym physically, mentally, socially. So it's an incredibly positive thing to be doing. But we all know, again, if you've got those people who are trying to pull you back, it's sometimes difficult to keep moving forward. So how would you advise those people to, if they wanted to do the same thing as you were doing, for example, how would you advise them to kind of keep going?
Well, trying to get some sort of support system is definitely important. So if your family's not going to be the ones to support you, try to find your own like family, even if it's like a gym family. So at the gym I was at, there was a team of us. We'd all trained together. It was really nice. And then we had the coach. So it felt like you had your little support group right there at the gym. But say there isn't a team, maybe even just a coach to support you, friends. But hopefully there would be someone in your family that would support you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Is that still a thing? in your life, Happy, or have family members kind of come around a bit?
Well, I don't talk to them, so I have no idea. I think again, this stubbornness comes out, and I'm like, well, just because someone says that I can't do something doesn't stop me from doing it. If anything, I'm like, I'll prove them wrong.
I think that's a really cool perspective on this. Something that I've really struggled with that kind of thing, Happy, is I sometimes go the other way and kind of get into my head, or if other people are saying I shouldn't do this, I'm obviously not very good. I won't do it. So that's something I could definitely learn to be better at. How do you kind of go from what I've just described that I do to actually, you know what, I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove that I can do it.
Yeah. So a bit like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would say I still struggle with that. Like as a coach, I still sometimes feel like, oh, am I doing a good job? Am I good at even good at this? Like there's other people that are better or like more confident. And then something I've probably read it online. It said there's somebody who's half as qualified as you and not as experienced as you, but they're full of confidence about what they do. And then you're doubting yourself, even though you're more experienced and have more knowledge. And it's like, oh, yeah, I do that a lot actually. Maybe I should stop doing that. But easier said than done.
Very true. Very true. I mean, just out of interest, where would you say you are the most confident? Where you feel like I can do everything here. I'm unstoppable, really.
The gym.
Why
Yeah,
is
because
that?
I think it's because it's my happy place. Like I love lifting weights and I love the gym. And especially now, like I've got to know lots of the members at the gym and they're all really friendly and supportive. Like it feels like a safe place to just be yourself. Yeah. And then I think it's always been that sort of place for me.
No, definitely. I think the gym's a great place if you can find someone on there. What are you like in the gym? Do you have your headphones on, or are you saying hello to everybody, or what does it look like?
Well, I'll go in and I usually go straight to the staff room because I've got many, many bags and coats with me. And then it depends. I'll either be like wandering around the gym and just chatting to everyone, or earbuds in into the lifting part of the gym and just cracking on with my session. But at the same time, people know if they like wave at me that I will stop and chat, even if it means my session's going to be another hour. I'll just chat to people as long as I don't mind how sweaty I am.
And what about those people who may be introverted but want to change their lives through health and fitness, but are terrified of get going through the gym doors and actually going and starting that journey? What would you say to them in terms of starting that process?
Well, I understand that the gym is very intimidating. I'll admit myself, when I joined this gym, coming from Newcastle, which is a lot smaller, I've never been to a gym so big or busy, like ever. So the first few times I hid in the toilets. And like I messaged my partner, can we go home? Because I just couldn't handle how like coming out of lockdown as well, how busy and big it was. I felt lost in the gym and just like overwhelmed. So if you feel like that, I would book in for an induction. So like one of the PTs could meet you at the entrance and show you around at like a nice quiet time. But it's definitely not as overwhelming.
That's some great advice, because I think it is one of the big things a lot of people struggle with, is just doing it the first time and going, oh, this is actually okay. But tell me, so you're in the toilets then, completely overwhelmed. How did you get to the point now of actually just loving it?
I'm trying to figure that out myself. How did I go from hiding to not wanting to leave the gym? Well, I guess exercising and like training makes me feel really good. So like denying that wasn't making me feel good. So then the more I got back into it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to carry on with this now. And then meeting people in the gym as well. There's some really nice people at this gym. There's this like a sense of community. just like amongst the members.
Yeah, that's really cool. And something that I heard a quote, Happy, that you might kind of acknowledge is that the quality in your life is often down to your relationships. I'm probably butchering that quote, but it was quite eye-opening to me in that it was for introverts, and I do this. I'm one of the reasons I wanted to start my podcast is to build relationships and get back in touch with people such as yourself, and get that back connected and things. Because as an introvert, I was just not purposefully, but I was making myself quite isolated. And I checked my phone one day and I thought, oh, well, actually, I'm not in touch with a lot of these contacts anymore. And that can lead to being lonely and feeling isolated and all these different things. So I think that some of the things you're talking about, getting into the gym and becoming part of that wider gym family, maybe there's a group like yours where it's a smaller tribe. I think that can just improve your mental health and make you feel so fulfilled. What do you think about all that?
Well, what you've just said reminds me of myself. Because like there's friends in Newcastle, like especially my best friends, and it gets to the point that they message me and they're like, Happy, when are you going to come to visit? Because this is ridiculous now. And you never message. Like you've just dropped off the face of the earth. And I'm like, well, I'm working. And they're like, yeah, but you do know that you can work and still talk to your friends. And I was like, I find it really hard for some reason. But I have promised now that I will visit more and make more of an effort. And it's nicer. Who'd have thought? It's actually quite nice.
I'm nodding like crazy because I totally agree. But I think the thing that other people, not necessarily your group of friends, but anybody doesn't really acknowledge is that for some people, some introverts certainly, that is a lot of energy to pick up the phone and send a message. Do you feel like that sometimes?
Yeah. Because sometimes I like look at messages and think of what I'm gonna say back. And then I don't do it for ages. And like a social gathering or like an event, it'll take me 2 days to get over it afterwards. I'm like, I'm knackered. That was so much effort. I just need to get into a cocoon.
Yeah, it's like a performance, isn't it? You're like, right, I've got to get psyched up for this social event, and then do the social event, and then after you just probably back on the
Yeah.
sofa with the dog.
Yeah, like an example is just Saturday. I went to it was called She Lifts, a powerlifting competition, and it was amazing. It was inspiring. I met all these cool people, and then I thought I could go to the gym afterwards because I'd done clients, a class, and then went straight to the comp. So the only time I trained was after. But I was absolutely frazzled. I like came home and was just horizontal on the sofa, and I was like, nobody better talk to me. And then my partner brought his brother home with him, and I was just like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, no extra people. What is happening? So maybe I came across as rude because I didn't want to talk. I was just like milling around the house and avoiding coming into the living room.
That's funny. I can imagine that. Tell me about the she lift session because I saw this on your Instagram and it looked superb. Tell me a bit about it because, like I say, I saw it and thought, wow, that looks so good.
So I saw it last year, I think August time, and it was too late to enter it myself. But I was like, I did not know stuff like this existed, like here in Leeds. That is so cool. And it's a little bit like what I'd tried to do with a colleague in Newcastle with the Strong Woman Club. So I was like, this is the sort of stuff I want to be involved with. It's so empowering. But then, say, later on that year, I knew I should get in touch and like try to get involved. But then there's that little imposter in your head that's like, you don't even do powerlifting. Like, why would you go to that? You're not a powerlifting coach. What could you add to this event? But then this year, a couple of my clients were interested in the competition. Someone from the gym entered it. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should go then, because people I know are going. So I got in touch with the lasses that organise it, and they were more than happy to have me come along. It was amazing.
Yeah, it looked it. How many people were there?
Well, there was 22 competitors,
Wow.
and like some of them brought their coaches, and then they had like their families, and then you had referees, spotters, and loaders. So I was just spotting and loading, but I forgot how much it takes it out of you to spot. Like when it's really heavy and you're spotting this weight, and you're like, if I take my eye off of this, or if I don't catch it, it's gonna crush this person. So I was like, focus.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. But it helped though, because I was like, I'm there, but I'm doing something. So it helped to be there, to have a focus.
So could the next or would the next step in that journey for you be a competitor in the future, do you think? Or is that not your aim there?
Well, it's not my sport. And I also have learned high rocks is also not my sport.
I'm excited to ask you about that. Yeah.
It was horrible.
So for people who don't know what High Rocks is, can you give us just like a little overview? Because I know it's just kind of burst onto the scene in the last year or so.
Yeah, and it so really took off. It keeps selling out. Um, I describe it as CrossFit, but with way less weights. Loads of running, less weights, and it's the sort of weights that most people would be able to do. So like a farmer's walk, so holding weights and traveling with it, lunges, and like pushing and pulling a sled. So it's like going back to that functional fitness,
Right.
like less complicated lifts, um, keeping it simple, but so much cardio that it's disgusting.
Because you again, I'm gonna give your social media at the end, Happy, but people need to get on your social media. You post some awesome stuff. But I was loving your bits about High Rocks and that you just kind of I'm probably telling this wrong, but you just kind of went for it and got booked into an individual event. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've got a friend and a colleague, she's a PT as well, and she's been a really cool person to meet here in Leeds. Has definitely
Right.
helped me settle and branch out into things like IROX. So she wanted to enter but do doubles. So we'd be helping each other, like share the workload. But it sold out. It keeps selling out. So it sold out so fast, and the only spaces left was individuals. So, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do it then. And she was like, no, come on, Happy, we can do this. And I was like, oh God. So yeah, I
That's
just
funny.
went for it.
How was it?
It was a mental battle.
Okay.
So I'm not a runner because I've torn my ankle like 3 times now, and it's never really got back to normal. So when I start running over a certain period, I start like limping onto that ankle. It starts hurting, and then I'll start going the other way, and then my hip will start hurting. I'm just getting older, but yeah, it was a mental battle because you had to run laps. So I thought it would just be like one go around the track and actually
Right.
run over. But it's like, no, you have to run around 3 times like a hamster on a wheel. Did not enjoy.
And would you do it again? Do I dare ask?
I don't think I would, but
Okay.
maybe it's because I'm neurodivergent. I found it all too overwhelming. There were so
Right.
many people, and you had to like dodge people. Like spectators would walk across the running track to get to the middle bit. So you'd be running, and then someone would try to cross you. So you try to dodge them, but there's people everywhere. It was a lot.
It sounds a lot.
For
It
me,
sounds
anyway.
a lot. But well done for getting in there. That's awesome.
So thank you. I found it really confusing as well because I thought, like, if there's 8 stations, that they'd be in order, and they weren't. So I was
Right.
getting really confused, and my partner said, he went, I just kept seeing you go to the refs, and like, why were you asking them so much stuff? And I was like, I was genuinely just really confused. I was like, is this the next one? What do I do?
That's cool though. That's great that you did it. And That must have taken some guts as well to just like apply for it. It was a big thing.
Yeah, I think again it was the whole feel the fear and do it anyway.
I love it. Yeah, I think it that you've got some great things that you're talking about. I'm happy, and that kind of brings me to another question around kind of like misconceptions for introverts, because a lot of the stuff you're talking about, it's like people think about introverts and then they hear what you're doing and say, oh, that's almost the opposite of being an introvert. But actually, you can be an introvert and still do incredible, cool shit. So, what do you think are some kind of misconceptions about being an introvert, and how would you kind of challenge them or overcome them?
I think one of the misconceptions is when you're being quiet that you're being rude. Like if you're not joining in like big group discussions or if people are just being loud and you just want to be quiet. I think sometimes think you're being rude. Like I've been called ignorant before and I'm like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Like I just didn't want to join in the conversation. I think that's all right. But yeah, some
I
people are going to think that.
I think that's a great example. I think that when people see the quietness, it is exactly that. And for years, I I still do struggle with that, to be honest. But in a big like a big event or a social event, or like big family gathering and stuff, certainly when I was a bit younger, like I wouldn't say anything for like 3 hours. But it wasn't, again, that I was trying to be rude. It was more that it was like I was fine just listening and that side of things. So I think that's a really, really good one. How are you with that now? Would you say you're still pretty quiet, or have you tried to contribute more, or how have you approached that?
I'd say I'm still pretty quiet, especially in a big setting. Because so like my partner's family is quite big, and sometimes they have these big gatherings where everyone gets together and it gets a bit loud and rowdy sometimes. And I'll just be sat there kind of quiet. But I might find like a couple of people that are also quieter, and I'll just end up talking to them or like just having like little catch ups instead of having to be like the loudest person in the group.
No, definitely. I love that. I think that's some really good advice. And I'm wary of the time, Happy. I want to be respectful of your time. So the question I want to ask you then, so what message would you say to any introverts listening who may be feeling hesitant or unsure about pursuing their dreams or stepping into their full potential? What advice would you have for them?
I think when you start going after what you want and you have to leave your comfort zone, you have to get used to being uncomfortable. And I think just as humans we crave comfort. So I'm trying to get used to being uncomfortable when I leave the house. But then I always know, like I try to remind myself, you can always still go back and hug the dog. Like that's always going to be there. You've still got other comforts in your life. So
Yeah,
try to push it outside of that.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I think getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, as the saying goes, it is key if you want to grow, if you're ambitious, if you want to develop a business, whatever you're doing. So no, I think that's a really great point. So last question, Happy, what's next? We've got the podcast going, the business going. Tell us about what's next for you.
Well, I want to grow everything. Um, I have noticed I'm doing more classes than I am like actually one-to-one PT because I enjoy being able to help more people all at once. So like growing the classes. And then something I spoke to with the business coach, but we had him for a year and then the gym like took him away
Ah,
and essentially fired him, which I don't think was very nice, like to
no.
save money. But I said to him, in the future, I would like to do events. And I was meant to do one in Newcastle just before lockdown.
Mm,
It was with another PT. She does powerlifting, and at the time I was doing ollie lifting, and then we were going to get a psychologist on board, and it was going to be about like mental health, empowerment, and building confidence. And so we had everyone on board, and then it was like, go to your house, don't leave your house. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to put that on the side for a little bit. But obviously it went on for a while, and then I moved to Leeds.
That all sounds really cool. And what about your podcast? How's that going?
So I don't know whether you know I've got 2 podcasts.
2 podcasts? No, I've only
Yeah.
seen the. Tell us their titles and where to find them and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so they're both on Spotify, and then I've been uploading bits onto YouTube as well. I need to figure out how to get it onto Apple Music. Once I do, it will also be on there. So the first one that I started, and I think it helped me build my confidence talking to a camera, it's called Desi Chat, which I guess means Desi people, so like brown people chatting, but it's spelt like the food item chart. So it's like a play on words, and we're talking about like things in our culture, like for example, comments that I made when you go to the gym. So that was a good one. And then we've spoken about mental health as well, because it was Mental Health Awareness Week around when we started it. But we do need to restart it because the person I was doing it with has just had a little bit of time off. But hopefully we can get it back up and started again.
That sounds cool. And what about your Spotify podcast?
Yeah, so I guess while I was waiting for us to restart the one where it was the 2 of us, I was a bit like, well, can't I do my own as well? And then so I made sure it wouldn't offend them. But then again, why would it? But it's that imposter again, isn't it? It's like, oh no, they're gonna get hurt. They're gonna think that I don't care about that first one because I've started another one. But I was like, no, I'll do one that's mainly about like gym, training, weightlifting. And obviously I always end up talking about mental health.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excellent. So yeah, guys, make sure you sign up to Happie's YouTube channel and Spotify as well. And what about social media? Where can they find you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Happie Lifts. And then I'm Happie Lifts on YouTube as well. And then my personal podcast is Happie Uplifts. Because it's a play on words because of my surname.
It's so good. Yeah, I think it's so good. And I've listened to that podcast and I think it's excellent. So definitely go and subscribe to Happie's stuff and find her on social media as well. Well, Happie, thank you so much for taking the time today. And you are the first ever guest on the Unstoppable Introvert Project podcast. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So with that being said, guys, thanks so much for listening. Happie, thank you so much for your time. And remember, your introversion isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that will catapult you to where you want to go. Until next time, stay unstoppable.